Welcome to FarmRPG. Belogan here. It's a sad day for the entrepreneurs and Scrooge McDucks who loved swimming in their piles and piles of silver in the bank. We've had some major economic changes today that were implemented in the game. We're going to talk about what those are, why they were implemented and why they were needed, and what some of our new recommendations are going to be based off of that. There's some pretty significant changes here. All right, so to get a start on this, the absolute largest change for our oldest players is that there's a max interest gained in the bank now of 5 million silver a night. There's a max value that is added to what wine value can go up to, and that is 5 million silver. Additionally, the wine cellar can only hold 100 bottles of wine at once. Can't go over that. There is a maximum to the number of chickens you can have at 250, and that is the same for cows. There's also a maximum of 500 trees that you can have in your orchard. Now, if you followed some of our other videos where we have been comparing how well the bank performs versus some of these other functions, we really had limits that were lower on most of these. For example, wine wasn't really worth it versus the bank of 4%, just because they could perpetually grow forever, and because the bank would just keep growing and growing and growing, it was a problem. So why was this implemented? Well, the simple reason is because some of our bank accounts after a couple months of growing got really very, very fat. I think I was the worst offender, probably not the only one, but if I come and look at my history here, this was yesterday, 30th of June. I had 2 billion silver in the bank and made 80 million in interest. It was beautiful. I loved it, but it was also pretty broken and something that needed to get under control, because these games just kind of grow, and the way most of Firestream's games go, like Titan Conquest, Destiny RPG before that, and some of the others, it's incremental growth. And to kind of hit these 2 billion experience values, you start off kind of slow and things slowly ramp up, and then when you hit around level 80, they kind of explode. But we don't have that in FarmRPG. It's kind of meant to be slower and linear, without necessarily a clear path to getting to 99 with the current content that's out there. Really, it just made it to the point where you could kind of buy everything and not have to worry about it. So for those of us that had a lot of money, it's given us incentive to go ahead and kind of hit the limits that were out there. So I've still got $1 billion in the bank, so a lot more than I can take advantage of. We'll figure out what we're going to do with that here in a little bit. But let's look at recommendations now. What does this mean, and how should we be spending our money? So we're going to come to another fantastic spreadsheet. I love my spreadsheets. Also, I'm going to just note quickly that this is going to have an impact on our farm supply tier list for what I think is the bank perks. All right, so let's talk about it. The bank, the cap is what's that new limit, and then the cost is how much it costs you to get there. So with everything I'm recommending, the total cost to get there is 527 million silver. It sounds like a lot. It'll take you a bit to get there. But it's still pretty doable within a couple of months, honestly, with the content that's out there. So with the bank, the cost to hit your limit is 125 million silver, because at 125 million silver with a 4% interest rate, you are going to be getting your 5% cap on interest from the bank. If you never get the perks to increase your bank interest percentage, that is 500 million is the ceiling on that. So as a direct impact of that, if you come over to our farm supply list, I'm changing my tier list for banker 1 and 2 from tier 1 down to tier 2. It's still pretty good. It's going to limit how much money you need in the bank to hit that limit. But if you're squinching with your gold and trying to figure out what perks are going to give you the biggest return early on, they aren't it anymore. They really aren't. Get your fertilizer one to increase your silver selling price, and get your resource saver. Those are going to have your 2 immediate bigger impacts. Then you can work on some of the others. The irrigation system is going to be really good. When you're ready, auto duplicator is pretty good. Then banker, then some of these other quality of life, so you can throw them in. Now, if you bought gold, again, you can kind of unlock all of these at once, so it's not nearly as large of an issue for you. All right, chickens, max is 250. So with chickens and cows, we have to worry about our inventory limit to max those out. If you don't have no space for 250 eggs or milk, obviously you don't want to get that. And then when these start leveling up, which happens in a reasonable amount of time, you want to hold off probably on maxing those out. But for chickens, to max those out, it's 1.575 million silver to get up to 250 chickens. Cows is a lot more than that. Remember, those were 500 incremental upgrade versus 50. So that's 15.75 million to max out all of your cows. So, the question is going to come up inevitably, well, where should I spend my money first? That's really going to come down to, where you're at in the game and where you can get a return. But chickens are early game, an easy way to invest some money and get a pretty good return relatively quick on those. Cows are going to be a little bit slower to get a return on it. You want to start putting money in the bank to building it up, but when you're able to, you still want to grab the Sawmill. Now, the Sawmill isn't in here, but let's come over to that table really quick. All of this comparison of long-term Sawmill bank values kind of goes out the window because of that 5 million silver cap. But we can still look at our initial investment and how much profit you can expect to get roughly per day on that. Now, again, this is with the 1.6% silver or 60% increase in silver selling price. But for 100 boards, your daily profit's about 3.4 million. 200 boards, about 5.6. And because you can't necessarily capitalize it, all of it, 400 is going to get you roughly 10 million a day. So, that's double what you can make on the bank. You're going to be making out of the Sawmill. So that's a better investment early. And it's also only 61 million versus 125 million to kind of max that out. If you want to go up to 800, it's a 241 million silver investment. And realistically, what you can capitalize off that because of inventory limits, you're probably looking at 18.13 million silver, but you might even want to go above this once you've maxed out everything else and you've got nothing else to spend money on, throw it in the Sawmill. I did a quick calculation to show how quickly you recoup your costs on this. For 100 planks, you recuperate it in about 2 days, 3 days for 200 boards, 6 days for 400, and in about 2 weeks for 800 boards per hour. Now, these profits are actually going to be higher if you have the item duplicator or resource saver perks. These values were calculated before those perks had come into play. So really you even get a better return on this than what we're showing. So when you're able to, Sawmill is going to be really the best income maker in the game right now once you can start doing sturdy shields. All right, and then chickens and cows, there's a full dedicated video showing how quickly they level, so I'm not going to go back over that, but you can assume they're going to hit level 2 pretty quickly. In a month or two, you'll be sitting level 6, level 7, somewhere in that range, long term if you're planning on playing the game for a couple months. All right, let's talk about your orchard. This one's going to be relatively expensive to max out. The limit's 500. I'm not there yet. I got up to 300 and thought that was pretty fancy. Granted, as you saw, I've got a ton of money I'm sitting on, so I'll probably max these out later today. So oranges and lemons, even though the max is 500, do 498. Otherwise, you got 2 extra every single day. Yeah, after 3 days, they'll build up. They'll make a new one for you. So if you want to get there, you can, but I calculated values with 498. And, see the difference here is about $1 million difference to go from 498 to 500. How much stamina is that going to get you? 83,000 stamina for oranges. So that's because you're going to get 83 bottles a day. And realistically, can you get that many bottles a day? Well, pretty easily if you have the last exploration area unlocked. So that's the Ember Lagoon. After you find all the runes, if you look what drops in here, you get stone and glass orbs that drop. You can hit your inventory limit on bottles very quickly with that. And then you end up overflowing on stone a lot, so you have to keep an eye on it. Apples, go ahead and do the full 500, that's 7,500 stamina. And then oranges, 83 bottles, 8,300 items found. That's pretty slick, and it's a whole heck of a lot less clicks than all of this exploration you're going to need for apples and oranges. And if you have the Wanderer perks, you can add another 50% to that for how much you're actually going to get to use. All right, last, that brings us to the Vineyard as the other cap that we have. I listed 100 on here. So the question came up is, how much should you really invest in the Vineyard? Well, the cap for the Vineyard is, or for a wine bottle, is about 5 million silver, which is the same as the bank. And if you look at the formula, how long it takes to grow there, it takes 170 days to get there. So this is my spreadsheet. I copied over where I calculated it all out. 170 days, you'll be just under that. On your 171st day, you'll hit the cap. Again, that full formula to calculate any day is 1,000 plus the number of days to the third power. And that'll tell you the value of that wine. So you could say, well, maybe I just want to do a wine every other day and do 50 in your vineyard. But with 170 days, you're not making use of that full capacity. So my recommendation still would be do 100 a day. If you wanted to, take the ratio of it and do something like 60 a day so that it comes out just average, so you're not wasting grapes, you could do that. But 100 a day, your initial investment is 10.2 million. Once your sawmill's up and running, that's really not that hard to get. Then you'll have 100 days where you can throw a bottle of wine in, and then 6 months later, you'll be pulling those out at 5 million a day each. Now you are going to have 70 days in there where you're going to have a whole bunch of grapes that you're not going to be able to do anything with. You can save up to your inventory limit and make them all into wine, and then wait till you can throw them, I guess, in the wine cellar again. I have heard from Firestream, though, that he may enable us to make grapes. So currently he holds a patent on that, and the only place to get it is from the flea market. But that would give you another use for your grapes. And then you could always just sell them. They aren't worth a whole lot to sell by themselves, but that is another option as well. Actually, let's even just go look at it really quick. If I go into town, into museum, because I've never looked just at grapes. Where are they at? Everything's in alphabetical order. Grapes sell for 250 silver. Yeah, you'd want to sell those versus throwing 100 of them into a wine in a glass bottle and only getting 1,000 for it. So, a little bit better return selling just the straight grapes if you have your wine cellar full. It'll take a little while to do, 100 days, and then you're going to be sitting on them for a while. Just about 5.5 months. So your total cost on that to max out everything is 527 million silver. You'll also have to decide at what point you want to invest in other farm upgrades. So the other one that takes a lot of money right now and grows in an X increment is increasing the number of farm plots that you have. So since we hit the limit today, I was planning on waiting till I had a lot more in the bank to do it, but I went ahead and bought the 1 billion row of crop. So I have 36 plots now that are growing at once. I'll probably never recuperate that off of weed or anything like that. It just takes forever. But what it did was it bumped my farming level up to 94 because it added that 1 billion experience in there, which gave me an extra like 20 perk points to use. So I was able to pick up some of the perks that I really wanted, like the resource saver that I didn't have quite enough for yet. And the other one I picked up was the exploration primer to give me more exploring experience, because that seems to be the one that's leveling up the slowest. However, since my orchard looks like it's going to be growing in the near future, that may change as well. So that's it. That hopefully gives you a path and a direction to show where you want to spend your silver. Get your chickens early, throw it in the bank when you can, then really focus on the sawmill until you get that up and running, and then kind of work on some of these other upgrades at that point. And from there on out, it should be pretty chill. There's a lot of other things you can do. I know some people are upset that the interest is capped in the bank. We've only got a certain amount in there, but because it was compounding daily, it really did kind of grow out of control pretty quickly with being able to purchase all of this. I showed you I was making 80 million silver in a day. It wouldn't take that many days to be able to max out everything off of just interest alone. Let alone everything else that you're doing, your fishing, your crops, your crafting, that's also bringing in revenue. So really it just kind of forces you to diversify where your income is coming from. I think it makes the sawmill a little bit stronger, and the resource saver and item duplicator perks even more important at the end of the day. But it also makes it to where you can't just have one strategy where you just throw everything in the bank and sit forever and wait till you're rich as Jeff Bezos. So that's the impacts. I'm sure things will change in the future. We're going to have more upgrades coming out later on for things to add to the farm that may have an impact on that. We'll address those as they come. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Thanks for watching.